to Bobby's Business Club, the chat show. My name is Bobby Semple, and I'm the host and the owner of Bobby's Business Club, which is a unique networking group. We meet online, and we meet every fortnight for 1 hour. And that is 1 hour of talking about your business. And we don't have any 40-second pitches. We split up that 1 hour evenly between all of our members, and we get to talk about whatever we want to talk about in that 1 hour. And the plus to that 1 hour is that we don't have time for a 10-minute presentation. So what happens is our members can come online and do a presentation live on LinkedIn and Facebook. And that means that they get more time to do a presentation. And so today we have one of our wonderful members. Her name is Suzanne Glendenning. She's been a good friend of mine over the last few years, networking and just brainstorming, and just any issues I've had, she's always been there for me. She's from Quantum Results Coaching International. She's a networking extraordinaire. She's been there, done that. And so you know, if you're looking to connect with someone who knows what they're talking about, then this is the person you want to see. So Suzanne is a business coach. She's from Quantum Results Coaching International. That's the name of her business. And I've just got a bit of an intro here about the presentation. It's about what's holding you back from living your best life. And that's what we want. You know, we want to run a business, and yes, we like the freedom it gives us, but are we truly living our best lives? Sue, welcome to the chat show. Thank you for being part of Bobby's Business Club. Thanks for being a great networker and just being great at what you do. And please give us an intro, and whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Thank you very much, Bobby. What an awesome intro. That was lovely. Really appreciate that. So there's no limiting beliefs in there. So today I thought I'd have a chat with you all about limiting beliefs, and some of you may be familiar with that term, and some not so much. But limiting beliefs are the things that can often hold us back more than anything else. So it's not just a throwaway term. It's not just some things that people have. You know, that can be a really, really big issue for a lot of people. And it's one of the things that I really love working on with people, because the results are just amazing. They're huge. And sometimes I even use the word transformational. And I mean, that's a big word and a big step. But in fact, it is, because changing the results and changing your thinking and changing your attitude about you and what you can have and what you deserve to have and what you can achieve, changing all of that, it can literally be life-changing. And I believe that everybody deserves to have the life that they want to have and they deserve to have. And often we will settle for second best. And I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think we should be doing that. So second best from today on, okay, everybody, second best is not good enough. And I'd like you all to think about what you really want to have and why. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. But have a little think about what's keeping you awake at night. Like, what is really bothering you? What's on your mind? What are the blockages that you have? What are the messages that you're getting? And do you sometimes feel that you're just spinning your wheels and not getting any further? Because I know I felt that. You know, it's not, you sometimes talk to coaches and you think, oh, they're so lucky because they know all this stuff, they must have the perfect life. And the reason, or if you get a good coach knows the stuff. A good coach knows the problems and the challenges and the speed humps along the way, because we've all experienced them. And if you haven't experienced them, then, you know, you're not paying attention, I think. So it's going through all the stuff and coming out the other side, but changing your belief system along the way is just incredible. And the results that I've seen come from that are just amazing, and I just love them. So I think limiting beliefs keep us from being who we are truly meant to be in this world, and they are blocking our opportunities, but there's something that we hold ourselves. They're very personal limiting beliefs. And I think it's time for everybody to start discovering what your own limiting beliefs are, why you've got them, and sometimes it can be a challenging journey, but to find out what they are, why you've got them, and how they're impacting on you is just awesome. And so let's look at what limiting beliefs actually are. So they're the stories we tell ourselves. They're the things we tell ourselves. And they can actually stop you from living your most authentic life if I can use the authentic word. And I know some people think that's a bit old school, but it's true. It's being who you really are and who you want to be. And some examples of limiting beliefs are things like imposter syndrome. That's a big one. I work a lot with women in business particularly, and on their mindset, and imposter syndrome is a big one. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. People don't like me or respect me. I'm not brave enough to take on this new business that I always wanted to take on, or this project, or whatever it happens to be, or this new role. Sometimes it's about your own physical appearance. You know, I don't look the way I'd like to look, and I can never look that way. Might be overweight or underweight or whatever it is. And people also take on feelings of guilt around things, and they own those feelings of guilt, and they store them up and they build them up, and they have some shame around those feelings as well. And can be with regard sometimes to not achieving your goals or your dreams or the things you've told everybody that you'll achieve and the things you've worked so hard for, and just basically accomplishing what you want. But having guilt around that, it can often lead back to a limiting belief. It's the story that you tell yourself, and it's a story that you started to believe. And you can get into your story, and then you start to justify your story. You start to own it. Even though it's not a good story and it's not the story you want to have, you start to own it. So, and often though, limiting beliefs are beliefs that you are not even aware of. And sometimes they come from childhood. And many people I worked with, we've discovered that their limiting beliefs come through from childhood. And it can be sometimes from well-meaning adults. It can be from siblings. It can be, you know, parents or school teachers, a whole range of people, people that often we look up to and respect, and we want their approval. And if they say something derogatory, we own that. We start to hold that, and we believe that, and we start to live up to it. And that's tragic, apart from anything else. So, I mean, look, hands up if you've ever had anyone tell you that money doesn't grow on trees, or you're not smart enough, or maths just isn't your thing. Yeah, me. Maybe it was a bit of misguided encouragement, and occasionally it can be that. And they'll say, look, you know, we just don't want you to be too disappointed if you don't succeed with this project, or you don't win, you know, when children competing in sport, you know, if you don't win today, don't be too disappointed, because you're not really that good at this sport, but you're sometimes good at other things. Really? No. So the list's endless, I think, with all this stuff. But we think as adults, we can just change this. You know, as I've grown up and I understand now that I can change this belief and I can believe something different. But if that's buried deep in your subconscious, it's not going to change. And I think that's the really sad part. And it's buried deep. You know, sometimes we don't even realise we've got limiting beliefs, and I've discovered them with clients and their beliefs they've held that they didn't even know about. But because I've noticed something in their behaviour, or I've noticed their language, and I've gone in and asked the right questions, and then say, well, how does this sound to you? Does this sound like something that you can relate to? And they'll say, you know what, it does. And it can be, sometimes it can be quite emotional. But then we get in and find out what that belief is, and we remove it. It's like a computer program. You can get in and remove that part of the program that no longer serves you, install a new one. You can't have a void. You have to replace it with something else. Replace that belief with a different belief, but really own that new belief. So instead of thinking, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, or, you know, I wasn't good at maths, therefore I can't take on this role, you can say, well, okay, maybe it wasn't my strongest subject, but there's nothing stopping me from learning. And if I really want that role, I can go in and get it, because I can do whatever I want. I'm smart enough to do whatever I want to do and need to do. And what will, you know, give me the outcome that I want. That new belief can be so powerful, you can change everything. And I talked earlier about transformation, and that's what it's all about. And it really, really does happen. And with due respect, I mean, there are self-development people out there, and they advise you to tell yourself every day that you're successful and you're talented and, you're deserving and gosh, but just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I deserve to have this and I'm awesome, and it will happen. I hate to tell you, it probably won't, because you're talking with your conscious mind. You're trying to convince yourself. But if that belief is deep in you that you can't have it, don't deserve it, not smart enough to have it, not good enough, then it's never going to happen, because you'll always self-sabotage. There'll always be something in you and you will find a way to self-sabotage. So that's when we go in and remove that initial limiting belief. So when you do look at yourself in the mirror and say, you're awesome and you are incredible and you are going to get that job, or, build that project or have that business, then you'll go out and do it because you actually believe it at the subconscious level. And the subconscious is where I work, basically. So self-image, that's another one. So people sometimes look at themselves in the mirror and others will say to them, you look awesome. You look amazing. You've been looking after yourself and you've been exercising and, but if your own self-image, the picture that you see is of someone who may be, in your view, overweight or underweight or just not looking good, then that's what you're going to believe, and that's the picture that you see. And nothing will change that until you go in and remove that old belief system and see a new image. And it often comes back to motivation. And I think when we understand that motivation is an emotion, then that can help change everything, because emotion drives human behavior and your actions drive your results. So the results that you get are a direct response to your thinking, basically. So a little formula that I just love, and I teach all my clients, and I learned this many years ago, that your thoughts equal your actions and your actions equal your results. So simple, but so important and so true, so true. So if you don't like your results, just, check back with the thinking and see what's going on for you. What are the stories you're telling yourself? What's your self-talk? So I think it's turning off limiting beliefs, which I've, mentioned before, is again, not just about, I don't want to have this thought anymore, so I'm not going to have it. I'm determined not to have it. I'm going to get rid of it. That has to happen at the subconscious level. It has to be really with somebody who can help you. Unless you have a way of understanding your subconscious, and you can do it that way, you can do it with meditation, and there's a whole range of ways to do it. But you have to understand that those beliefs come from your subconscious. So unless you can find them and really understand them and accept them, that they're there, don't make a big deal about it. No judgment around it. They're just there. They just arrived at some stage and you've accepted them. And that's okay. We do that. But if you don't want them, let's look at how to remove them. So usually you'll need some help with that. And that's about communication. So it's good, clear communication with yourself as well as other people. And I think if your own communication is negative, you can say, I want this, but I probably won't get it because, well, I just never do. Have a think about what you're saying. Would you say that to someone else? Would you be so harsh? And we often do that. We're much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. So take a moment to check in with what you're saying, and not just check in with your thinking, but check in with your communication. And what are you saying to yourself? What are the stories that you're telling yourself? And exploring things like, I wonder. That's an amazing thing. I've taught many of my clients this, and they said, you know what, my takeaway from this session has been, I wonder. And rather than saying, I need to do this, come on, I've got to do this, I've got this thing happening and pressure on, why not just say, I wonder what would happen if I did that? I wonder what would happen if I changed my job or went for that promotion or started this new business. And I wonder I wonder. and allow yourself to think about what might happen. What are the possibilities? And you do that with an open mind, and you do that with the perception that it's possible, rather than the old, now what do I have to do? I have to make a list, or I have to find the I have to, I should. Oh, cross should word completely out of your vocabulary. But I wonder, it's just lovely. And I've had so many people come back to me and say, you know what, once I started using that, I was opened up to so many more possibilities and so much more potential, and I had the courage to explore it. So I wonder what's possible for you. I think it also comes back to knowing your why. People talk about goals. So it's knowing what you want and why you want it. And again, that's deep. That's the hard stuff. And if you don't know exactly what you want and why you want it, then you probably won't get it because you're not serious about it. So it's really important to engage with that and really engage at the emotional level and say, I get it. I feel good when I think about this, and I feel really good about starting that business, or I feel really good about going for that promotion or changing jobs or whatever it is you're doing in your life, travel or whatever. So engage with your why and really know what you want and why you want it. And then you can start to recognize any limiting beliefs that come up, because that's when they'll sneak in, and it'll be, but you can't have that because. Check in with them and go, well, that's what I need to get rid of. I've got these 3 things that keep coming up for me. I need to get rid of those. They need to go. No room for them anymore. They're baggage. I often talk about getting rid of your baggage. What do you do when you fly? When you go step on a plane, you put your baggage in the overhead locker, or you've got your baggage that's been checked in, and you don't need it. You don't need it. You can travel perfectly well without your baggage. So sometimes it's also good to get rid of some baggage. And I remember hearing, I had a client actually quite a while ago, and I heard something similar. She and I had a discussion about this other person that I'd heard about, and she said, I just don't understand why I'm not getting ahead with my business. She said, I know I'm talented, I'm highly qualified, I'm extremely motivated. I want this more than anything, but I'm just not, there's always blockages. Something always happens. So I asked her some questions. We checked in with a few things, and it turned out that she didn't believe deep down that she actually deserved it. Once we removed that belief and we installed the new one, everything else just took off, because she was talented and she was capable and she was focused. So just by removing one simple belief and reinstalling a new one deep at the subconscious level, we did this with hypnosis, everything changed for her. She said it was like a switch went on. Mine's a very powerful place. I love working with mine, and when I came from the corporate world, so I'm very familiar with that world and the way the structures work and hierarchy works, and things that happen, and the challenges that happen every day, and the stresses that people are under. And I find I can relate when people are talking to me about their challenges that come from those kind of roles. But I think once you understand that we're all individuals, and being clear about your thinking and clear about what you want and not compromising on that can make the difference between what you're achieving and what the person next to you is achieving. So it's understanding that stuff can happen, but it's how you deal with it that counts. And that's where your belief system will come in again. Is it possible to do this, or is it not possible to do this? So be very mindful of your language, and things like this never works for me, and all of those little things. Check in straight away. If you find yourself starting to say things like, well, this doesn't ever work for me, you can say, hang on a second, I wonder why I'm saying that. What if it did work for me? Or I wonder how I could make it work for me. Start to change your language. what's possible here? What do I need to learn? What do I need to find? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to talk to? Just look at what's possible rather than allowing things to become blockages and speed humps. And I talked a little bit before about imposter syndrome, and I know that's a huge one for a lot of people. And there's actually, I read something from Psychology Today, and it's listed as a psychological phenomenon in which people are unable to internalize their accomplishments. Basically, it means you don't believe you're good enough to do what you really want to do, or you're in a role that you've been promoted to, or you're in a business that you've really gone after and worked hard at, but there's a little voice inside you that says, really, really, you in the right place? Do you really deserve to be here? So we put our mask on, and a lot of us step out every day wearing our mask. And we choose a different mask, whether we need to be bold or whether we need to hide behind it, or whatever mask we think we need to wear that day. Best advice there is get rid of it. Don't need it. Get rid of your mask. Be who you are, love who you are. And if there's something you'd like to change, then change it. Hiding behind the mask is not a good place to be. And imposter syndrome is a syndrome. You know, people feel like an actor playing a role, and they feel that they again, goes back to the old limiting beliefs I spoke about earlier. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I had a very successful young man I was talking to in Sydney. He's a client for quite a while, and he was in his late 30s, and he'd been promoted quite quickly a couple of times. And he was terrified. He said, just lived in fear every day. He said, one day they'll realise that I'm not the right person for this role. So everybody else thought he was. His team thought he was awesome. He was doing a great job. So we did some work on that. So we did a bit of hypnosis work. We did some work, and I discovered what his limiting beliefs were, zapped those, got rid of them, installed new beliefs about what was possible for him, and he's just loving life now. And he said it's related to his family life as well. You know, it's just made everything much easier. So there's a whole lot around that little phrase, limiting beliefs, and our thinking and what's going on in our heads. So I was talking before about self-talk, and it just reminded me about somebody who said, I don't know, I'm often in two minds about that. Well, we are. We use our conscious mind and we use our subconscious mind, or our unconscious mind, whichever you like. And your subconscious mind is like autopilot. So again, who's ever driven home from somewhere that you're familiar with and just driven home and not even realise suddenly you're in the garage and you don't even remember the trip? You've driven home on autopilot. You've been aware. You don't have to get into your car and think, my goodness, now what do I do? What's the first thing I have to do to make this thing move? Switch straight into autopilot. You know how to drive the car. You just do it. You don't even think about it. You know the way home. You don't have to think about where you're going. You just go there. Completely on autopilot. So you may be aware of the traffic conditions and what's going on from the conscious point of view, but the rest of it's all subconscious. That's often how we live our lives. That subconscious influence is happening all the time and we don't realise it. And we act on our old beliefs, and we act on habits. And procrastination's another one. It's another habit. And procrastination's actually just either avoiding doing something you don't like doing or don't know how to do. But people make excuses around that as well. And often it can be a limiting belief buried in there which creates the procrastination and stops you doing things. So you create this whole belief, then you create a story around it, and then you have an excuse around it. And we often have reasons and excuses as to why we don't do things or can't do things. I'm sure we've all been there. But once you decide and make a decision to remove those and decide that you really do want to live your best life, and maybe you can contribute to doing that in some way rather than just telling yourself what's not working, everything will change. Guarantee it. Everything will change. So again, procrastination's just a habit, and it's also an emotion. You know, I talked a lot before about emotions. Emotions cover so much of what we do. So I don't know whether whether there's any further questions about that, but there's a whole lot around limiting beliefs that that govern what we do every day and how we think. But they can play a huge role in our lives, and I work with so many people on removing those, installing the new beliefs, old computer program, out with the old and in with the new, and the difference is just phenomenal. And so many client stories, and they've said didn't know this was possible. Sometimes relationships even. Had one very successful businesswoman who had trouble with her parents, her relationship with her parents of all things. And we changed her belief around that because they kept, undermining her. So we changed her belief around how she could communicate with them. And she said, I had no idea that life could be so good. It's just amazing. So she's living her best life. And that was one of the things she actually wrote back to me. She gave me a lovely testimonial, and she said, I am now living my best life. So we can do it. We can all do it. We can all do it. You just have to decide that you'd like to, and look at your decisions, what decisions you're making and why you're making them, what's working for you and what's not working for you, what things are coming up for you, what stories you're telling yourself, and maybe just decide that it's time for a change. I did. I changed my corporate role, decided to go into something different for me, and I didn't know what that was. It wasn't until somebody suggested coaching, and I thought, oh no, straight went into a limiting belief. I'm not sure I'd be a very good coach. So 20 years later, best thing I ever did. And it was fun. It involved going back to study and going back to school and, retraining and relearning and lots of study and lots of hard work and starting a business. And my goodness, all the things that go around that and all the challenges and emotions that are involved there. But I really got connected to my why, and that made all the difference. And it can for you too. So, face your fears. If the fears come up, face your fears. Look at them. Have a look at where they're coming from. Decide if you'd like to hold on to them or let them go. Remember, get rid of the baggage. And then think about your why. What do you want? Why do you want it? What does your best life look like? And then maybe decide that it's time that you started living it.
Mhm.
So some takeaways from today I'd like to leave you with. That's okay. I've got a couple of things I thought. I wasn't sure whether Bobby was going to mention them or not, but so just a few I noted down, and I thought, and I often ask my clients what their takeaway from the session is, and some of the things that come up are just lovely. And somebody said to me just last week, my takeaway is that I can be my best me. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was lovely because she's already pretty successful. So that was awesome. So do you know what you really want and why you want it? Do you believe that you can achieve and then deserve to have it? So do you believe you can achieve it, and do you believe you deserve it? And what would be the impact if you could change the negative thinking that's creating the problems for you? If you could remove that negative thinking that's creating those problems, what would the impact be for you? And when was the last time that you questioned your own reality? What's real for you? Honestly, hand on heart, what's real for you? So then ask yourself, what's stopping me from living my best life? Maybe it's you.
I think that's a great place for us to finish. And I've got so many things written down here on this piece of paper because a lot of what you've been talking about reminds me of the journey that I've been on, and so it's it's one of the most important things is you've got to give yourself permission to live your best life, right? And that's people think they don't deserve it. I don't deserve to live a good life. Everyone deserves to live a good life, and I want to talk about the why because when I started my businesses, the why was because I needed to survive, and and so it wasn't, yes, I want to change the way the world recruits. That came later on when I understood what my services were going to do. And so is it okay for your why to change? Because I'm assuming your why when you started was a bit different compared to what now is, because you've grown into your business, you've learned more, you've seen the results of what you do. So it's okay for that why to change over time.
It is okay because the more you learn and the more you settle into your why, the more your why makes sense to you, I think. And because sometimes our why can be quite big and it's still a little bit fuzzy. But the more you move into it and the more you start to adjust to it and the more you start to create the success that you want, the clearer that why becomes. And sometimes it becomes bigger, which is even better. So you can certainly grow into it and you can certainly adjust into it, but that's changing your thinking. Allowing yourself to do it. Allow yourself to do things. Don't force yourself to do things. Just allow yourself. Be kind to yourself.
Definitely. And that actually is a good segue into the next thing I want to talk about is actually two things that you mentioned. One was about self-image, and I want to talk about that. And so I do these lives now, and I do loads of things on the internet, and I didn't want to do them before because I was like, I don't like the way that I look, I don't like the way that I sound, and all these things. But when I started to network and meet people, and people would say, "Oh, really like your accent, you sound great," or someone would compliment me how I look or whatever. But if we don't accept those compliments, so many people go, "No, no, I'm not," or whatever. That then stops you achieving some goals. And so I didn't like the way I sounded, but then I realized that, hey, that's what everyone hears. And so I got over it. And now I do a radio show, I do these things, and all these things that allow you to go and be successful. And so can you give us some examples of how people can be accepting of compliments? Because if we can get over ourselves, the way that we look, the way we sound, or the way we do things, and most of the time people are telling us we can do it. Like you were saying about the client you had, the team loved him, that everyone said he could do the job, but in his head he was like, I can't do it. And I bet you've been told 20 million times, hey, you're great at doing this, you're great at doing this. And inside we're going, I'm not. What are the things we can do to help get over that of, hey, you're saying I'm great, I sound great, but I don't believe that. So anything we can do?
Sure. Okay, well, get over yourself first. Don't be precious. And a gift. If somebody gave you a gift, would you just say, oh, no, I don't deserve that. No, take it away. I'm not interested. A compliment, and most of them, I mean, even if they're not completely genuine, people are still trying to be nice. So you take that as a gift as well. But if someone says, I love the way you talk, or I love the sound of your voice, or I love what you say, or you look awesome every time I see you, or whatever it is, and there can be all sorts of things people say, or you're super effective at what you do, and they're gifts. Accept those gifts, be grateful for them. So hold an attitude of gratitude, be really grateful for those and take them on board. And then maybe you can think about it. I wonder why people are saying this to me. And I had all these limiting beliefs right through my corporate career. And I thought, goodness, I don't know why I'm in this role. And, how did I get here? And I was being promoted and I was being taken on for, poached by other companies for bigger roles. And I think, goodness, they've got the right person. And so I started to look into myself and I thought, well, what are they seeing? So start to look at what other people see. So first of all, take it as a gift, accept that and be grateful for it, and acknowledge that. Thank you for saying that. And, really nice, because people enjoy giving you compliments and they do it for a reason. They don't do it because they have to. They're genuine. So take that as a gift, take it on board, maybe have a think about it. And say, well, what are people seeing? So obviously there's something in me I'm choosing not to see in myself? Why am I choosing that? Is it an excuse not to do something?
Yes,
So
that's right.
take it on board, look at what they're looking at and say, okay, people are seeing this in me. This is what I want to be, and they're telling me this is what they see. Why am I choosing to go down this other path and have all these limiting beliefs around it? So what's going on for me? Do I need to talk to someone about it, or is it something I can really look at and make the changes?
And the other thing I want to talk about is people are scared to do things because they're scared to fail. But if we're sat here right now on a computer, on Zoom with a camera, with desks and keyboards and mouse and all these things are all normal to us now. But if we go back, let's talk about Zoom for a second. Zoom was a business way before the pandemic, but the pandemic brought the light onto remote working and cameras and stuff. But imagine if the person who created Zoom was like, oh, do you know what? I'm too scared to do it. And so when we look at all these products and businesses, at some point they've had that fear. I've got this idea. I'm not sure it's going to work, but they carried on doing what they were going to do because we sat here now on Zoom. I'm using a Logitech camera. I'm using a HP laptop. So if Mr. HP didn't start that business because he was scared, I would not be. Where would this world be if we didn't have people taking those chances? And
Exactly.
And that could be the same for you as a business owner. You might be having this business and it might be a mortgage broker, right? And you might go, oh, yeah, but there's loads of mortgage brokers. Yeah, but there's no mortgage broker like you.
No.
And you've got to do it. And when I started Simplified Recruitment, in my head was like, there's so many recruitment companies. Why would someone want to come and use me? Well, because they want to use me because of me. But you've got to take a chance. If you don't take a chance, and 9 times out of 10, and the reward by far outweighs the risk, right? And especially if it's just time and effort. Of course, if you're going to put $1 million into a business, great. If you've got $1 million to do it, you might lose that $1 million, but I'm assuming you've got way more money if you can invest $1 million in a business. But can you talk about that and how we can get over that fear of failure? I'm going to go and do this thing. It probably won't work, so actually, you won't bother doing it. What can you give us to help us so we can go and try these things?
Sometimes it's not just fear of failure, it's fear of success.
Yeah.
Because that can be an excuse to not do it. Like, oh my goodness, what if I actually do succeed? Oh heck, oh well, gosh, I'll have to keep going at this and also I'll prove to myself that I can do it. Whereas, it's easier to sit back and say, oh, well, probably won't work. I won't do that because it probably won't work. There are lots of recruitment coming, or there's lots of coaches. Goodness, I didn't even think about that. So, if you want something, you look at why you're afraid. And I mean, fear can be a good thing. It's actually quite a good emotion to have. I mean, fear will stop you crossing the road in the traffic, when it's heavy traffic. I mean, it'll stop you standing too close to the edge of a cliff. And fear sometimes protects us, but it can also sometimes be a barrier to stop you doing things, but it can also be an excuse. I'd love to do that, but I'm just too scared. Or is it just an excuse because you really don't want to take that next step to see? And again, I said, I left my corporate role and I had nothing to go to. So that was a big step for a start. So I stepped out, quite courageous when I look back, and taking on a whole new thing with coaching. So I had to go back to school, I had to relearn and start my own business. And I mean, there's lots of coaches out there, but there's only one me. So, there's only one you who can do what you can do the way you do it. And I think if you really want something badly enough, it's okay. Sometimes we do make mistakes. It doesn't have to be failing. We can make mistakes, or maybe things aren't quite working out. So you look at that and say, well, what isn't working here? What do I need to change? Keeping that focus in mind, what is your end result? What is your desired outcome? And if you keep that in mind, it's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to maybe, there's a glitch might come in, but sometimes it's outside influence as well, like economic influences and things. Okay, how do I make this work for me? I'm always asking those questions. How do I make this work for me? How can I do this differently? How can I do this in a better way? How can I do this to help somebody else? Constantly asking questions. So that pushes you through the fear. So acknowledge the fear if it comes up, It's a normal emotion, but don't let it be a barrier. You have to decide that it's not going to be a barrier for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Can you give us an example of a client who was politely resistant to the belief that he could change his thinking and overcome a phobia?
Oh gosh, there's an easy one that comes to mind actually. I was working with this gentleman a few years ago, and he was a very nice person. And when he came in, introduced, and he'd been referred by somebody else, and I'd come highly recommended apparently. And he told me that, and he said, "Look, you seem like a very nice person, but to be honest with you, I don't think you can help me." So that was the way we started. And he said, "In fact, I'm sure you can't," but he said, "I'm here because a friend recommended you, and I'm, doing the right thing." And he had a phobia about flying. And he'd been able to, and I've got permission to talk about this too, by the way. So, and he's given me a testimonial, so he's quite happy to share his story. But he had a shocking, debilitating phobia about flying. But he used to fly years ago for work constantly around Australia and overseas. And he said, and he said, it's not just a fear. He said, I cannot get on a plane. And his wife had died a couple of years earlier, and his adult children wanted him to go on holiday with them. And they said, it's important, Dad, for us to have this time for the three of us. And he said, I have to go, but I can't. He said, I've tried everything. I've tried all the tablets. I've tried all the psychology. I've tried everything. He said, I've even tried hypnosis. I've tried everything. And he said, a friend bought him a ticket. He said, just to Sydney. He said, I'll come with you. We'll just go get over this thing. And he said, I got to the airport, and he said, I was a bit nervous, but he said, I was so determined, and I'd taken my medication. And he said, I got to the door as you walk through through customs. And he said, I couldn't go any further. He says, like my feet were in concrete. And he said, I just felt ill. I couldn't do it. So we agreed that he really wanted to get rid of this, because you have to really want to get rid of whatever it is, the phobia or the fear or. So we did a hypnosis process. So I asked him quite a few questions first, and I made sure he was ready for that. And we did a hypnosis process, and it took him back to childhood. And there was something in his childhood which, related to this particular fear. And in 2 sessions, he was flying. He was back in the air, no problem at all, thoroughly enjoying it. And he sent me an email actually when he got back from holiday, and he said, my kids love you because
Oh, it made me so emotional when you get something like that.
Well, he said he also couldn't get in a lift because he said it was, maybe it's something about confined spaces and people thought he got claustrophobia. He said, I've been through all of that. And he said, his accountant moved offices, and instead of being on the ground floor was on like the 35th or something. And he said, I walked into the building and it's just banks of lifts. I couldn't, so he couldn't see his accountant. So after our session and after we removed that belief and installed this new one, he said, no problem at all. And he said, first thing I did was make an appointment with my accountant, because he said, it was great. He said, I didn't realise, like how fun it could be. And he said he got into a lift at the football too, which was packed with people. And he said it was slightly uncomfortable, but he was fine. Whereas he said once before he wouldn't have even got in with all those people standing in there. So that's a massive impact on somebody's life.
Life changing. You change that person, and it also changes the lives around you as well, because it changes how you do things. But we're people who are watching this. Most people are networkers, and obviously you're a networker yourself. But what an interesting referral request that would be. Hey, I'm looking for a new accountant, but they've got to be on the ground floor.
Exactly. But we do that. We make excuses and we work around our beliefs and our phobias. And we adjust our lives to fit with them. And why would you do that if you don't have to?
That's right. Sue, thank you so much for jumping on the chat show. That was 45 minutes. You can't get that into 10 minutes. This is why we have a long time in our presentations. How can people reach out to you, Sue, if they want to learn more about what you do?
Both websites, I've got 2. So www.quantumresults behind me.com.au, or there's the women-inbusiness.com, or Calendly, a link through LinkedIn. Sue Glendenning. It'll be Suzanne Glendenning on LinkedIn.
It is, yeah.
So look for Suzanne Glendenning on LinkedIn and you connect with me there.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way.
Yeah, or you can reach out to myself. I'm happy to do introduction,
Lovely.
or you can come and meet Sue. I'd say in person, but virtually in person. She attends our fortnightly networking events, and you can come and meet her there. But Sue, thank you so much for bringing your wealth of knowledge to the masses. And like I said, I've got loads of notes written down here, and it just really makes me realize how far I've come as well when I speak to you. Because I remember our first conversations, and I was kind of like, I was in a nice way, don't take this wrong way, I was scared of you because you were this, oh my God, this person's got all this experience and knowledge. And I'm like, there's no way I'm never going to be able to speak to a person like I do. But you know, we all have our special powers. We all have our special ways of doing things, and we're all so unique. And we can go out there and with a bit of confidence and a bit of help with someone like Sue, you can take on the world, and for all we know, you could be watching this right now and you might have an idea for an app that is going to solve world hunger, right?
Yeah.
But if you're there going to go, oh, it's never going to work, no one's ever going to know about it. So connect with someone like Sue or Sue herself, and they're going to help you to take those steps. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. See you soon. See you.
Thank you. Thanks.